My name is Kelly, and I'm 47 years old. I live in a small house in Austin, Texas, where the summers are brutal and the winters are mild. I've lived here for 23 years, ever since my son Brandon was born. This house has seen all of his milestones, his first steps, his first day of school, his high school graduation. It has also seen our worst moments, including the day he told me he never needed me and walked out of my life. That was 4 years ago. 4 long years of silence, of wondering if I'd ever hear from him again, of questioning every decision I'd made as a mother. But life has a way of bringing people back together when you least expect it, often through the very circumstances we'd never wish for. I work as a nurse at a pediatric clinic in downtown Austin. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I love it. There's something healing about working with children, about being able to comfort them and their worried parents. Maybe it's because I couldn't fix things with my own son, so I pour all that maternal energy into helping other families. Brandon was always headstrong, even as a little boy. His father, my ex-husband Derek, left when Brandon was only 6 months old. Derek was a musician who decided that family life wasn't for him. He moved to Los Angeles to pursue his dreams and sent exactly 3 birthday cards over the years before disappearing completely. I raised Brandon alone, working night shifts at the hospital when he was young, then transitioning to day shifts when he started school. Money was always tight. We lived paycheck to paycheck, and there were months when I had to choose between paying the electric bill or buying Brandon new shoes. I always chose the shoes. I always chose him. But as he got older, he started to resent our financial situation. He saw his friends with their nice cars, their expensive clothes, their family vacations, and he blamed me for not providing those things. When Brandon was in high school, he became obsessed with business and entrepreneurship. He read books about successful CEOs, watched documentaries about self-made millionaires, and developed this philosophy that people create their own success or failure. He started saying things like, "Poverty is a mindset," and "If you're not rich, it's because you're not working hard enough." It broke my heart to hear him talk this way, especially when those words were clearly directed at me. "Mom, you could have done more with your life," he told me once when he was 17. "You settled for being a nurse. You settled for this small house. You settled for mediocrity." "I didn't settle, Brandon," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I made choices. I chose to be there for you. I chose stability over risk. I chose to make sure you had everything you needed." "Everything I needed," he scoffed. "I needed a mother who was ambitious. I needed a mother who showed me how to be successful. Instead, I got someone who was content with barely getting by." Those words stung more than I could ever express, but I told myself he was young, that he'd understand someday when he was older. I thought time would give him perspective. Brandon got a full scholarship to the University of Texas, which made me incredibly proud. He majored in business and finance, graduating at the top of his class. During those college years, he came home less and less. When he did visit, he talked constantly about his plans, his goals, his future empire. He had gotten an internship at a prestigious investment firm in Dallas, and they offered him a full-time position after graduation. The day he moved to Dallas, I helped him pack his car. It was filled with boxes of business books, his expensive suits, his laptop and equipment. As I hugged him goodbye, I told him I loved him and that I was proud of him. "Thanks," he said stiffly, pulling away. "I should get going. Traffic will be bad." That was it. No warmth, no real goodbye. He drove away, and I stood in the driveway, watching until his car disappeared around the corner. Over the next 2 years, our relationship deteriorated completely. He rarely called. He never visited. When I tried to reach out, he gave me one-word responses or ignored me completely. Then, 2 years after he moved to Dallas, I called him on his birthday. He was 25 years old. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said when he answered. "I was hoping maybe I could drive up to Dallas and take you to dinner." "I don't have time for that," he said flatly. "I'm busy building my career." "I understand you're busy, but it's your birthday. I'd really love to see you." "Mom, I need you to understand something," he said, his voice cold. "I never needed you. Everything I've accomplished, I did on my own. You were just there, but you didn't actually help me become who I am. I don't need you in my life. I don't need your guilt trips or your attempts to take credit for my success. I made myself successful despite growing up the way I did, not because of it." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. "I think it's better if we just don't have contact anymore," he continued. I'm trying to move forward with my life, and honestly, talking to you just reminds me of everything I've overcome. So please, just leave me alone." He hung up before I could respond. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. My sister Paula came over later that night and found me still sitting there. "He doesn't mean it," Paula said, holding me while I sobbed. "He's young and stupid and full of himself. He'll realize what he's lost." But months passed, then years, and Brandon never reached out. I sent him Christmas cards that were never acknowledged. I sent texts on holidays that went unanswered. My co-workers told me to stop trying, to let him go. But how do you let go of your child? How do you stop loving someone just because they've stopped loving you? I threw myself into my work. I took on extra shifts. I volunteered at a homeless shelter on weekends, serving meals and organizing donations. I started a small garden in my backyard, growing tomatoes and herbs. I adopted a dog from the shelter, a sweet golden retriever mix named Sunny, who became my constant companion. I built a life that didn't revolve around waiting for my son to come back to me. But there was always this ache, this emptiness that nothing could fill. I'd see mothers and sons together at the grocery store or at restaurants, and my heart would break all over again. I'd wonder what Brandon was doing, if he was happy, if he ever thought about me at all. Then, 3 weeks ago, I got a call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening around 8 o'clock. I was on my couch with Sunny, reading a book, when my phone rang. It was an unknown Dallas number. "Hello? Is this Kelly Rodriguez?" a professional-sounding woman asked. "Yes, this is she. Ms. Rodriguez, my name is Catherine Mills. I'm calling from Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas. Your son Brandon was admitted to our hospital this morning." My blood turned to ice. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He was in a serious car accident. He's stable now, but he's sustained significant injuries. He's going to need surgery and an extended recovery period. You're listed as his emergency contact." "I'm coming right now," I said, already standing up, looking for my keys. "Tell him I'm coming. Tell him his mother is coming." "Ms. Rodriguez, there's something else you should know," Catherine said gently. "Brandon has also experienced some significant financial losses recently. The accident happened because he fell asleep at the wheel after working for 48 hours straight. According to his colleagues who've contacted us, his investment firm collapsed 2 weeks ago. He lost his job and apparently a substantial amount of his own money. His apartment is being foreclosed on. He has no insurance. We need to discuss payment arrangements and his care plan when you arrive." I drove to Dallas that night, making the 3-hour trip in just over 2 hours. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel the entire time. Brandon was hurt. Brandon had lost everything. Brandon needed me, even if he didn't know it yet. When I arrived at the hospital, a nurse directed me to the ICU. Brandon was in a room by himself, hooked up to monitors and IVs. His left leg was in a cast elevated in traction. His face was bruised and swollen. There were bandages on his arms. He was asleep, sedated for the pain. I pulled a chair close to his bed and took his hand carefully. "I'm here, baby," I whispered. "Mom's here." A doctor came in shortly after, a young woman named Dr. Patel. She explained that Brandon had broken his left femur, fractured 3 ribs, and suffered a severe concussion. He would need surgery on his leg within the next few days, followed by months of physical therapy. The recovery would be long and difficult. "Does he have somewhere to go after he's discharged?" Dr. Patel asked. "He's going to need full-time care for at least 6 to 8 weeks. He'll come home with me," I said immediately. "I'm a nurse. I'll take care of him." Over the next 2 days, while Brandon drifted in and out of consciousness, I learned more about what had happened to him. His investment firm had made some extremely risky decisions that backfired catastrophically. The company went bankrupt, and Brandon, who had invested almost all of his savings with them, lost everything. His apartment, his car, his savings, all gone. He'd been trying desperately to salvage something, working around the clock, barely eating or sleeping. That's when the accident happened. On the 3rd day, Brandon finally woke up fully. I was sitting beside his bed, reading a magazine, when I heard him groan. "Mom?" His voice was rough and confused. "I'm here, sweetie," I said, setting down the magazine and moving closer. "You're in the hospital. You were in an accident, but you're going to be okay." He looked at me, and I saw tears forming in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "The hospital called me. I'm your emergency contact." "You shouldn't have come," he said, but his voice broke. You should have just let them handle it. Brandon, you're my son. Of course I came. He turned his head away from me, and I saw tears running down his cheeks. I have nothing, he whispered. I lost everything. My job, my money, my apartment, everything I worked for, everything I accomplished. It's all gone. You didn't lose everything, I said softly. You're alive. You're going to recover. I told you I never needed you, he said, his voice full of pain. I was so cruel to you. I said terrible things, and now I have nothing, and you're here anyway. Why are you here? Because I'm your mother, I said simply. That doesn't change just because you pushed me away. That doesn't change because you said things you regret. I love you, Brandon. I've always loved you, and I always will. He sobbed then, really sobbed, his whole body shaking. I held his hand and let him cry, not saying anything, just being there. The surgery went well. Dr. Patel repaired his femur with a metal rod and pins. The recovery would be long, but Brandon was young and strong. After a week in the hospital, he was discharged to my care. I'd already converted my small home office into a bedroom for him, moving furniture, buying a special hospital bed, preparing everything he'd need. The drive back to Austin was quiet. Brandon stared out the window, watching the Texas landscape roll by. When we pulled up to my house, he looked at it with an expression I couldn't quite read. I forgot how small it was, he said quietly. It's home, I replied. And right now it's your home too. Those first few weeks were incredibly difficult. Brandon needed help with everything: bathing, dressing, getting to the bathroom. His pride was shattered along with his leg. Sometimes I'd hear him crying in his room at night. Sometimes he'd snap at me out of frustration, then immediately apologize. One evening, about 3 weeks after he'd come home, I was helping him into bed after his physical therapy exercises. He'd been particularly quiet all day. I owe you an apology, he said suddenly. A real apology, not just for being irritable, for everything I said to you, for the way I treated you, for telling you I never needed you. Brandon, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he interrupted. Please let me say this. I was so arrogant, Mom. I thought I was better than everyone else because I made money and wore expensive suits. I thought success meant having wealth and status. I looked down on you for being a nurse, for living in this house, for not having what I considered ambition. I was a horrible son. You were hurt, I said gently. You were angry about growing up without your father, about struggling financially. I understood that. No, you shouldn't understand it, he said, tears streaming down his face. You shouldn't excuse what I did. You worked yourself to the bone for me. You sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities. You paid for my school supplies, my sports equipment, my college application fees. You never took a vacation. You drove that same old car for 15 years. You gave me everything you had, and I threw it back in your face. I sat down on the edge of his bed, taking his hand. Brandon, I'm not going to lie and say your words didn't hurt me. They did. They broke my heart. But I also know that you were young and confused about what really matters in life. You thought money and success would make you happy. You thought cutting ties with your past would help you move forward. A lot of people make those mistakes. Losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me, he said, which surprised me. I don't mean I'm glad I got hurt or that I lost my money, but it stripped away all the false pride, all the arrogance, all the things I thought defined me. And when everything was gone, the only person who showed up was the person I'd treated the worst. You, the mother I told I didn't need, the woman I looked down on. You were the only one who came. That's what family does, I said. My colleagues didn't come, he continued. My fancy friends from Dallas didn't come. The people I thought were my network, my connections, they all disappeared the moment I lost my status. But you, the person I rejected, you drove 3 hours in the middle of the night because I needed you. You took me into your home. You're taking care of me, even though I don't deserve it. Over the following weeks, as Brandon's physical recovery progressed, I watched him change in other ways too. He started asking questions about my work, actually listening to my stories about the children at the clinic. He apologized to my sister Paula for the way he'd ignored her at family gatherings. He wrote thank you notes to my coworkers who sent him care packages. He spent time playing with Sunny, who had immediately adopted Brandon as her new best friend. One Saturday afternoon, about 2 months into his recovery, Brandon was able to walk with crutches. We were sitting on the back porch, watching Sunny chase butterflies in the garden. I want to tell you something, Brandon said. I've been thinking about what I'm going to do when I'm fully recovered. I'm not going back to finance. I'm not going back to that world. What are you thinking instead? I asked. I want to do something that actually helps people, he said. I've been researching social work programs. I want to work with at-risk youth, kids from low-income families like we were. I want to help them understand that success isn't about money or status. It's about character, about how you treat people, about making a positive impact. Tears filled my eyes. Brandon, that's wonderful. I've also been thinking about this house, he continued. I said it was small, like that was a bad thing. But Mom, this house is full of love. You've made it warm and welcoming. You've created a real home here. I was chasing after mansions and luxury apartments, but they were empty. They didn't have what this house has. My sister Paula started visiting more often, bringing meals and keeping Brandon company while I was at work. She told me privately that she'd never seen such a change in anyone. He's like a different person, she said one evening while we prepared dinner together. The old Brandon was so cold, so focused on himself. This Brandon is thoughtful and kind. He asks about other people. He's humble. Losing everything taught him what actually matters, I said. Sometimes we need to fall completely to understand what really holds value. Brandon's physical therapy was progressing well. He was walking without crutches now, though he still had a limp that might be permanent. He'd enrolled in online classes to prepare for applying to social work programs. He helped me with cooking and cleaning, insisting that he wanted to contribute since he was living in my home. One evening, about 4 months after the accident, we were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner. Brandon had cooked, making spaghetti from a recipe he'd found online. It wasn't perfect, but it was made with love. Mom, I need to ask you something, he said, looking nervous. What is it? When I'm fully recovered and start school, can I stay here? I know I should probably get my own place eventually, but I'd like to stay here while I'm in school if that's okay with you. I'll get a part-time job to contribute to expenses. I'll help around the house. I don't want to leave. I want to be here with you. My heart felt so full I thought it might burst. Of course you can stay, Brandon. This is your home. It's always been your home. I wasted so much time, he said, his voice thick with emotion. 4 years we could have had together, and I threw them away because of my stupid pride. I can't get those years back, but I want to make the most of the time we have now. We can't change the past, I agreed, but we can create a better future. And Brandon, I want you to know that I forgive you, completely and totally. You don't need to keep apologizing or feeling guilty. We're here now, together, and that's what matters. Last week, Brandon got accepted into a social work master's program at Texas State University in San Marcos, just 30 minutes from Austin. He was so excited he literally jumped up and down in the kitchen, forgetting all about his healing leg until he winced in pain. We laughed until we cried. He also got a job working part-time at a youth community center here in Austin. He comes home from there with stories about the kids, about their struggles and their dreams. He talks about them the way I talk about my patients at the clinic. I can see that he's found his calling. Yesterday was Sunday, and we have a new tradition of making breakfast together on Sunday mornings. Brandon was making pancakes while I cut up fruit. Sonny was lying on the kitchen floor, waiting for someone to accidentally drop something. You know what I realized? Brandon said, flipping a pancake. I used to think you settled for this life, but you didn't settle at all. You chose what mattered. You chose love over wealth, family over career advancement, stability over status. You made the right choices, and I was too blind and arrogant to see it. I made the choices that were right for me, I said. You'll make the choices that are right for you, and I think you already are. I told you I never needed you, he said, turning to face me. But that was the biggest lie I ever told, and the worst part is I believed it. I needed you then, even when I couldn't admit it, and I need you now. Not because I lost everything, but because you're my mom, and you're one of the best people I know. We hugged right there in the kitchen, Sonny barking excitedly around our feet, the pancakes getting slightly too brown on the griddle, but none of that mattered. My son was home. My son had found his way back to me, not just physically, but emotionally. He'd learned that wealth could disappear in an instant, but love, real love, endures. Sometimes we have to lose everything to understand what we truly have. Sometimes we have to fall completely to discover who will catch us. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom to realize who's been there all along, waiting with open arms. Brandon told me he never needed me, and then he lost everything but me. And in losing everything else, he found what mattered most. He found humility, compassion, purpose, and love. He found his way home. My name is Kelly. I'm 47 years old, and I'm a mother. I lost my son to his pride and ambition, but I got him back when he lost everything else. And I would go through all that pain again if it meant having this second chance, this opportunity to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of truth and genuine love, because that's what mothers do. We wait, we hope, we love, and we're there when our children finally find their way home.